Do you need to add an OTF or out the front knife to your knife collection? We're going to answer that question and take a closer look at the Microtech UTX-85 knife. Let's go inside and take a closer look at this knife. Hello and welcome back to Blade Insider, where we discuss all things knives. And today we're going to answer that question. Do you need an OTF in your knife collection? And we're going to take a closer look at the Microtech UTX-85 knife and the sheath specifically designed for it. Now, I want to thank my friends over at eKnives for this knife. They didn't provide it for free, nor did they provide me any consideration for this video. However, they are a vendor that I like to use. They're a family-owned business, and they always provide great service. So I'm including a link down below, and I encourage you to visit their website. Before I forget, I want to remind you to subscribe to our channel. We really appreciate our subscribers and try to bring you the best information on a weekly basis. Also, while you're down there, don't forget to like this video. We're here on location on beautiful Kelly's Island, Ohio. Kelly's Island is one of two tourist islands located in the western basin of Lake Erie. Put-in Bay is the other island, is a bit more wilder, while Kelly's Island is tamer. The western basin of Lake Erie is known as the walleye capital of the world. So if you're a fisherman, you owe it to yourself to get out here and do some fishing. Now the island is populated with a number of wineries, bars, and restaurants. It's always a good time coming out here and enjoying yourself for a day or a week. Now I ordered the knife and the sheath from eKnives. The sheath is made by Linos. It's a little pricey at 35 bucks. It's made of kydex and it fits well on your belt. It's really no wobble while you're carrying it. I bought the sheath because in my jurisdiction, it's not illegal to own an OTF, but depending on the police and the court, it may be considered a concealed weapon. Therefore, wearing it on your belt is a little better than having it in your pocket in terms of having any trouble with law enforcement. I based my reviews on 5 factors. The first factor is design and aesthetics. Let's take a closer look at the knife. You see that it's black anodized aluminum scales, accented by a pewter clip, glass breaker, trigger, and branding near where the blade deploys. The clip has the Microtech branding and also a born on date right here, which is a very nice touch. The clip is affixed to the knife by the glass breaker and turns up, and there's a small hole right there. The trigger has pretty aggressive jimping along both the slider deploying the knife and retracting the knife. And there's also aggressive jimping along the sides of the scales. The knife uses screws that are proprietary, so unless you buy the $35 tool, you're not going to open up this knife. The blade is a flat grind, stonewash finish, Tonto style blade. You can see on the show side, it has a Microtech branding as well as labeling UTX-85. And also along here is a 204P labeling showing that the knife is made of the 204P metal. I have the plain Jane version of this knife, but there are many different versions out there that are much fancier than this. For design and aesthetics, I'm going to give this knife a 4 out of 5. The next factor is carryability. That's where this knife shines. But first, let's run the tail of the tape on this knife. The overall length of this knife is 7.5 inches. The blade length is 3.125 inches, and the cutting edge 2.875 inches. Blade material is CTS 204P, which is chemically very similar to M390 and 20V material. The handle length is 4.375 inches, and the weight is 3.06 ounces. And it's American made. Now the knife feels very right in my hand. I have a 4-finger grip on the knife, and when I bear down on it, there's no pinch points. This clip contours to my fingers very well. It feels very solid in my hand. Now in terms of carrying it, the clip is not deep carry, but almost. Sticking it in your pocket, only that much sticks out. It also can fit in your watch pocket, but a little more of it will stick out of that pocket. And I love knives that fit into the watch pocket. But where this knife shines is using the Linos sheath. It fits very well on your belt. In fact, like I said, it's one of the best sheaths I have ever had to carry knives with. So for carryability, I'm giving this knife a 5 out of 5. Let's look at the materials in this knife. The scales are made of aluminum, which is common for OTFs. The aluminum is light, but feels very solid in your hands. It feels like a solid tool that'll last for years. The blade material is 204P. Now this is chemically consistent with Bowler M390 and Crucible Industries S20V material. It's one of my favorite blade steels, and I'm sure it's going to have great edge retention. It's my understanding that Microtech switches out their blade materials on a regular basis. So be sure to check with your vendor when ordering to know what blade steel your knife will come with. Let's compare this knife to S30V steel. 204P steel rates a 2 for ease of sharpening and a 9 for edge retention. Rates a 6 for toughness and a 7 for corrosion resistance. S30V steel rates a 5 for ease of sharpening, an 8 for edge retention, a 5 for toughness, and a 7 for corrosion resistance. For materials, I'm going to give this knife a 4.5 out of 5. The aluminum scales is ordinary, but the blade is extraordinary with the 204P steel. Our fourth category is utility. Does the knife do what it's intended to do? This knife has two uses. First, it's a glass breaker. The glass breaker, very solid, sharp, and I'm sure it's going to break glass. I haven't tried that yet, but I have no doubt that it'll do that job. Second is cutting. Does the knife cut well? Again, with these OTFs, they're a more tactical design knife, meaning that they can be used for defensive purposes. I don't use my knife for defensive purposes. I do use it to cut. Now, with this blade, coming from the factory, it's not the sharpest blade that I've ever bought. It does cut hair, but not very well. So I am disappointed about the sharpness of this knife. The blade does wobble a bit when deployed, but the wobbling isn't as substantial as I thought it would, and it doesn't affect the usability of the knife. The blade has not misfired once since I bought it. It fires each time, and it fires very hard. The lack of razor sharpness reduces this blade to a 3.5 out of 5. The last category is value. This knife retails for $237, and that number goes up with all the different options you can get with a knife. Now, there's a lot more engineering and tooling involved in OTFs than there are with regular fixed or folding knives. Also, the blade steel is very premium, which adds to the price of the knife. The Sheath is a little pricey at $35, but it adds a lot to the carryability of this knife. So for value, I'm going to give this knife a 4.5 out of 5. Adding up all the scores, we come to an overall score of 4.2. Sharpness had a negative effect on the overall score of the knife. But let's get back to the initial question of this video. Do you need to add an OTF to your knife collection? I still think my initial reservations are valid. Generally speaking, OTFs can look like murderous weapons, and there is some blade play when the blade is deployed. But looking at this specific knife, the UTX-85, I don't believe that it really looks like a murderous weapon. And the blade play, while it's present, doesn't really affect the usability of the knife. So for this knife, I'm going to add it to my collection. You know, I think these knives, these UTX-85s, might be a gateway knife into the OTF world. You buy this knife first, you figure out whether you like it or not, and then it opens you up to different styles of OTFs and different sizes of OTFs. Do you have any OTFs in your collection? Do you prefer folding knives? Let me know down in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And while you're down there, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate our subscribers. And ring the bell for new weekly content. And if you got anything out of this video, hit the like button. We'll see you next time.